welcome to another episode of Ultima Final Fantasy, the ultimate in Wiiware Final Fantasy podcasts. I am your host, Kaleb Schweiss.
I am Joseph DeGollier.
And today we are reviewing Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, My Life as a King, the first Wiiware title in the Final Fantasy series as a whole, and one of two that we will be playing for this podcast. So
that's right. The order goes My Life as a King, and then we got to go over to a regular Wii game / DS game, Echoes of Time, and then we have to come back and do My Life as a Dark Lord, which is the sequel to this game.
Right.
And according to one of our listeners, probably the only one who's like touched either one of these games, it's like the same exact game, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, I kind of hope not. I heard it's tower defense, but if it's tower defense like the other ones, like this one's an adventure game, it's going to be really boring. Mm-hmm. But,
And this review might be 20 minutes long.
Yeah, well. There's a chance. There's a chance. So, like I said before, Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, My Life as King. Joe and I started it and completed it this week, and it's not like this week like we just finished it yesterday. It's like this week like I finished it on like Tuesday and Joe finished it on Sunday, which is the day he started it.
I finished it on the day we were talking about or I think we did the episode that day, didn't we? Was it the day we recorded?
Yeah, it was. It was Sunday.
Right after the episode I went and bought a 20-inch television, and then I came back, hooked everything up, and then I put in the game and just played, and I beat it in one sitting.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was interesting. It's funny because the how long to beat time was just a blatant lie. I had remembered because, you know, our plan was to beat all these games by May, which it looks like it'll be like August, but whatever. When I sat down and like figured out on the how long to beat times, like how long it would take us to beat all these games, I remembered this one being like 7 hours. Then I went on how long to beat right before we started playing it, and it said 20 or something like that. I can't remember what it was, but it was much higher than 7. Then I play it, and it's like maybe 6. Like, I don't know who put in their time, screwed up the time, and then like, yeah, man, it's such a short, tiny little game. I don't even know if it's worth the amount of money for the game because of how short it is. But
I can't quite remember how much we paid for it either.
No,
to be honest,
one of these games was $5, and one of these games was $7.50.
Okay,
I'm not sure which one was which. I assume this one was the $5 one, so $1 an hour. So
it's pretty good. Pretty good entertainment cost,
I guess. Yeah, I guess so. For other video games, you'll buy them for $60, and they'll be 14 hours or something. So it is actually better per hour. Sure. Yeah,
I mean, not necessarily better for how much fun you're having, but
no.
We'll dive into that. So the game was initially released on March 25th, 2008 in Japan, and May 12th, 2008 in North America, and the 20th of May, 2008 in Europe. So most people kind of enjoyed the game. It seems to have fairly positive reviews along like Metacritic and stuff like that. And the follow-up game that we mentioned before, Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, My Life as a Dark Lord, was actually announced at a Nintendo keynote speech at Game Developers Conference of 2009. So this game here, initially it was Square Enix kind of wanted to make a game for the Wiiware service that was going to be like a higher profile game. They were like, you know what, we want to come in here and we want to dominate this Wiiware service that I honestly didn't even know was a thing. Of course, I didn't have a Wii until like 2014.
I was born with a Wii. And a Y chromosome as well.
That's right. But Square decided they wanted to make one that was pretty awesome. And they're like, you know what? Later on, they decided that it was going to be a simulation game and that they were going to make it a Final Fantasy title. So the last thing they decided about this game was that they were going to slap the Final Fantasy name onto the game itself, which I can believe. I mean,
of course.
It's honestly, though, this one is a direct sequel to Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, whereas the last one we played was more of like a prequel setup with Ring of Fates. But it's a weird city building game that's set in the world of Crystal Chronicles, and it follows the events of the first game directly. So at the end of Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, Joe and I basically purged the world from this giant plant that was creating this disgusting ooze mist stuff that's called miasma, right?
Miasma's acting up, yeah.
Yeah. So the main character we play as in this game, his father actually lost his kingdom during the first game, and he sets out, the son, our character sets out after the events of the first game to establish a new kingdom, and he wants to create a nice peaceful land. And so that's kind of the MO we get right out of the bat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're real casual about the king thing. They're real casual about it.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. They're like, the father's not dead, but they're like, well, this guy's the king now. He's been gone for a while. So basically, you and a couple of your little assistants sort of set out, and you find this plot of land that looks just like a kingdom, but all the shit's gone. So you got the walls, you got the base set up, but there's no buildings in the area, and you suddenly realize that you have an ancient power called Architect that you receive from the crystal that you find in the plaza in this shell of a castle. Mm-hmm. And then you basically learn that this power allows you to create buildings out of thin air. And that's what you do. And suddenly you slowly start rebuilding the kingdom of Padarak, which I left it as the default one. I don't know if you... Okay. Yeah, and that's the suggested name that it gives you is Padarak. And you basically just start building your city. And as the day goes on, I say day, quote unquote, it's like 7 to 10 minutes long or something like that for each day in this game.
I don't even know if it's that, man. It's so...
yeah, it is pretty short. It is pretty fucking short.
When you're actually trying to do crap, it's annoying how short the day is.
That's true, yeah. When you have objectives that you're trying to actually get done, it is kind of frustrating.
Yeah, you get those days basically to rebuild your stuff, and then of course there's a Dark Lord, of course, and he is like, I don't know, is he resurrected or is he waiting on you? I have no idea. And then you gotta send off adventurers to do your bidding and explore the land and crap like that, and then eventually defeat the Dark Lord.
Right.
It's a real shell of a plot in this game, which is fine. It's really just something to kind of have an odd game around. I've never played a game like this before.
Yeah, it's almost like the SimCity of Final Fantasies.
It is. It's like a SimCity for Final Fantasy villages.
Yeah, but here's what I called it. I've called it to everybody that I've described it to.
Okay.
It's like NFL head coach, but for Final Fantasy players instead. So like all the fun stuff that comes with playing football, like going out there, throwing passes, getting touchdowns, all the fun stuff that comes from playing Final Fantasy, casting spells, killing enemies, leveling up. You are the guy who helps other people do all that fun stuff.
You're the manager of the adventure team.
Yeah, it's Final Fantasy Adventure Manager is what this should be called. And it's not called that. It's called My Life as a King, which, if this is the life of a king, this is a shitty life. Like, I can't believe anybody ever wants to be king in anything ever. If all you get to do is be a kingdom manager, you know. But yeah, that's basically what the setup is. And then you rumors start to spread about a Dark Lord who apparently forced everyone out when the king's father initially established the land. And there's one night that everybody meets up, and the Dark Lord actually appears from the crystal, and he looks just like your dad. And he encourages the young king to keep constructing the realm. Of course, the girl you're with, her name's Chime, which is a stupid name. She tells you not to listen, and that your father wasn't like that. Like, she's like, oh, don't listen, your father wasn't that way. It's like, what, he didn't want to construct the realm? Okay, fine. Like, and then he takes off. And eventually you start learning more and more about the Dark Lord, and you realize that he basically built up a town and wanted it to be a safe haven for the monsters, which kind of adds the Eastern mythos of like, oh, the bad guys aren't really bad. They're just the flip side of the coin kind of an idea. And he was just trying to keep those people safe. But once the miasma cleared, basically everybody just started rocking all the monsters. And he basically, eventually the Dark Lord reveals that his goals are the same as yours, and that he wants prosperity for everybody. And he basically says that he only destroyed your father's kingdom and kept him captive because his father was foolish and refused to accept him. Yeah. So, like, he refused to acknowledge that the monsters weren't really that big of a deal.
Yeah, he's making
which is kind of weird.
Monster kingdom.
Yeah. And I guess excuse me.
Your excuse.
God. It honestly, the bad guy, like, I don't really understand why he's a bad guy, like, almost at all in this game. Like, he did destroy your father's kingdom, but, like, why? It just seems like he's like, oh, yeah, he's like, I refuse to accept you. And he's like, all right, well, now I'm going to destroy your shit. Like, I don't know. I don't really get it. It doesn't really make any sense. It's really, like Joe said, it's a really shallow story. It's pretty scratching the surface on anything for like the regular series. It's just like a taste.
Yeah, I would say most of the Crystal Chronicle games have been that way. Ring of Fates tried to have a really big plot, but yeah, it's just kind of superficial, regular, run-of-the-mill Final Fantasy plot. In which case, you just revealed more about the plot than I ever remembered from the game. Because honestly, most of the game was based around the gameplay.
Yeah. And I mean, the game ends with you finding the Shrine of Awakening, and this is kind of like the last area in the game, and you pretty much just throw groups of heroes at the Dark Lord until he finally gets taken down. Yeah. And he comes back. Your father comes back because he's not dead. It kind of seems like he's dead, but then it's like, oh, he's captured. And he comes back, and he actually kills off the Dark Lord. And with his final words, the Dark Lord finally acknowledges that you, King Leo, are the only one who's been worthy of the title Archlord. Basically, you're awesome, is what he's saying as he dies. And then, the next day starts. The Lord Epitaph actually he abdicates the throne to his son, which is, of course, your character, King Leo. And then the game ends as you being the new king because your father stepped down. So
the game ends with you starting a new game plus.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like Joe said, the story. It's real simple. It's real light, and the biggest part about the game is certainly the gameplay. It kind of plays like I don't know, like a weird SimCity-ish thing where you build the buildings. You don't just do building zoning, but it's not as crazy as it sounds. You just like select a building, choose which direction it's going to face, and then the building just constructs itself out of thin air.
Yeah, you use your fairy lady to to help build your stuff. And we talked about the days, of course. You have a certain amount of time in each day in order to get certain tasks done. And the day goes like this. If you were granted a new building plan, you can go build a building, assuming you have the resources to do it. In order to get those resources, though, you need to send out adventurers, which you need to hire. You need to send out adventurers to go and get those resources doing quests or exploring areas.
Right.
And so the first thing you do every morning is send out the adventurers you already have. If you got a new building plan, you go and expand your city, and then when the adventurers come back, they'll give you either money or they'll give you what's the crystal stuff called? Do you
It's elementite.
Elementite.
Is what it's called.
And the elementite is used to build houses, and the money is used to hire more adventurers, or get equipment and stuff like that for the adventurers. So it's a really interesting system. You start with houses only up until you get to a certain point, and then you get like an armory type building, and then eventually you'll get like a time mage or a black mage school and a white mage school, because we believe in segregation here in Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicle land.
Yeah, clearly.
And there's other types of training involved. There's like an arcade thing for your warriors, but this is as the game goes on. The more quests you do, the more stuff opens up for you.
Right, and the quests, you start the day out and you basically issue behests.
Yeah.
To your players, the teams you get to manage as head coach.
Yeah.
Right, and you basically select who gets to go out and do those missions. And then during the day, what it turns into eventually, like what Joe was saying, you kind of build whatever buildings you can, you make sure there are enough houses to get as many people as you can, and then you just go to sleep. Basically, this kid sleeps all the time, as far as I can tell. He's awake for about 2 minutes a day, and then he sleeps for 23 hours and 58 minutes. And you wake up, you get the results of whatever quest you sent your guys on, and they kind of review. It's kind of in depth. You can see exactly what happened with each of the quests. You can like look at the quest logs, and you can read like who killed what and like what killed them. And which is kind of useful because you kind of learn what enemies are in certain areas, and you can counter them if you want to, but really you just keep throwing enemies at each zone until they kill, or you keep throwing allies at each zone until they kill all the enemies and clear it out.
What I did was when I got, I got up to 2 where you could do 2 different bequests a day based upon whatever the thing is. I don't know if you can do more at that point. You might have to do a New Game Plus, but it seems like you should be able to. Because that's based upon the buildings that you receive. You can only do, there's like bequest areas. I can't remember what they're called, but they're like bulletin boards.
Right.
And you can only build 2 of them at a certain point. Anyway, because there were 2 of them, some of the bequests was like, train your guys to be black mages, train your guys to be thieves.
Which honestly, very misleading.
And so you would have a pretty, just by doing one bequest on each of those things, you would have a pretty diverse party.
Yeah. The sucky thing is, though, is like, I got into the habit of, I would issue a behest, and then I would like go to the board and just say commission all adventurers, which was a really bad idea when the behest was like, oh, become a black mage. And then suddenly, instead of having like 20 warriors, I had 20 black mages. So I started having to like go and micromanage the characters that were like gathering outside of the behest board, because what they'll do is they'll like pick which one is like more their speed for the day. I guess. I don't know if there's like any stats that like draw them towards a certain one as opposed to another. And then so like everyone would go to this one, but no one would go to the mission of like, hey, let's do some more story. They're like, nah, let's be a black mage instead. I don't want to do story content. I want to switch my job because I hate my job, you know? And it's like, it got kind of annoying because then I realized I had a shitload of black mages, and then I had to start like, okay, well, you can become a warrior again. You can be a warrior. You should probably stay a black mage. But by doing those, yeah, you usually will have more diversity with your party, which is good because, I mean, having the white mage does give them a little more stamina out in the field, you know, somebody keeping their asses alive.
Yeah, I believe there's 4 jobs in this game.
There's warrior, thief, black mage,
black and white.
Yeah, black mage, white mage. And I think that's it for hours. I guess there was some DLC stuff that the game had initially, and it gave us, I think it was a couple more jobs and a couple different playable classes, like character models. But we, of course, are playing this in 2018, and the store is dead. So even if we wanted to buy the DLC content, we can't anymore.
No. And I wouldn't anyway. So yeah, that's kind of how the game plays. I'm looking at our old Facebook chat here, Schweiss.
Oh yeah.
I said I'm on the first chapter, gonna beat it tonight, or I'm on the last chapter, gonna beat it tonight. LOL. Not a 20-hour game. And then later I go. Later you say almost the equivalent to a fucking head coach game in football. You manage everything surrounding the quests, but don't actually go on them. And then I respond with bequest, sleep, occasionally build. That's the game. You can only occasionally build, by the way, because you're not only limited by the elementite that you have, which eventually you don't become limited in that because you're just building up stores of it. But you're also limited in that at certain points of the game only allows you to build so many things. And you can do other things like do upgrades at each of the schools for the jobs or at the weapon shop.
You didn't do very much of that, though, did you?
I did a bunch of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I did as much as I could, actually.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's basically you upgrade, you do research contracts, essentially, and you have to have certain items available, but you will go to the Black Mage school, and you'll be like, hey, you know, here's 250 gold, or gil, why don't you research fire 2, or something like that, or like research new fire spells, or research debuff spells and stuff like that. And then the black mages will then be able to learn those spells once they reach the certain level required to obtain the spell. And they will kind of run around the town and sort of get prepped every day before they go out and do your little quests that you told them to do, which I feel like the more shops you have, the harder it is to actually get anything done in this fucking game, because like they'll visit like shop after shop after shop, and it's like, guys, the fucking day's almost done. Like, get out of here, man. I asked you to do this fucking quest, and you're sitting in town shopping, spending all the money I gave you, you know? And it's like, yeah, and then like they finally start leaving town, and the sun's setting, and it's like, wow, no wonder I can't beat this fucking game. These guys are leaving at like 6 p.m. and coming back at 8 o'clock. But yeah, you kind of like upgrade your research levels. You get new items unlocked. It makes it easier for your adventurers to succeed in the field, and you earn all of this money through taxes. Essentially, you just kind of, based on the population, you get what's called tithes from your citizenry, and the more people you have living there, and also speaking of building upgrades, you get a second house that you can then start throwing down, and it gives you more people, I think, and you get more tithes from the larger houses.
Yeah.
And that's a good way to like expand your income. So you get those daily, and you also get money from what the adventurers find in the field, like with the treasures and shit that they find in the dungeons that they clear. So, like Joe said, you get the elementite, and then you start getting a ton of gold and a ton of elementite, and it becomes, by the end, you have like 12,000 elementite and no buildings to build because there's nothing left in the game to experience, as far as I can tell. The one thing I wasn't able to do was upgrade my city all the way, and the reason why is because I think I have to do New Game Plus for that. It's because you remember the when you would get morale bonuses from the citizens, and you had those like little circles that would like they would fill up, and you'd get the morale boost, and then you can go upgrade your city.
No, I don't remember doing that.
Oh,
that must be why you have a higher score than I do.
Yeah, probably. But
I didn't use the morale system like at all in this game.
Oh, well, basically when everyone gets happy, it fills up this little meter on the left side, and it fills up a morale token or some shit. I don't know how to...
It just, all it said was I got a reward, and I had no idea what the reward was. So it happened naturally a few times.
Yeah.
Like 3 times, I think I got a morale boost, and that was it.
Oh, I got 73. And the reason why is because I would go around and talk to people in the town and boost their morale myself. And that's probably why the game took a lot longer. But the reason why I was doing that is because the little token you get from getting the morale bonus, you can turn those in to Chime in the castle, and you can spend them to upgrade your castle. Oh. Basically. So it starts out as the town of Padarak, then it turns into the city of Padarak, then it's like the castle of Padarak, then it's the empire.
Knick-knack, Padarak, give a dog a bone.
Yeah. Yeah. And it just keeps going up from there, you know? As if there's anything above that.
So fucking stupid.
Okay. Oh shit.
Fucking Padarak.
That's a really weird name, isn't it?
Yes. I was wondering why it sounded so like familiar and terrible at the same time. I just figured it out.
God.
Knick-knack, Padarak, give a dog bone.
Ah, fuck.
So yeah, my pattern of gaming was I would just, because you have the option to talk to the fairy and go to sleep early instead of letting the day end. So it was like there was a point where I was standing like
the titular chime. Of course, I was like kind of weirded out by that.
I was always sick of sitting, so I was like standing 8 feet away from this tiny little television, and I would just like I would do the same motions every time. I would just like swing the Wii stick so that she would come out, and then like just automatically like a speed demon just go pop, 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 go to sleep, and then same thing would happen the next day until my heroes would finally get past a certain point, and then I was able to do other things occasionally.
Did they automatically accept your quest? You don't have to go over to the board?
You can go over... Oh, there's a quick way. You go over to the board, and then you put them all on the quest. Like, that's
okay.
Option in the menu.
Yeah, so that's what you do, and then you just go to sleep?
Yeah, I'd wake up, go to both the boards, and then go to sleep. Yeah.
Yeah, I started doing that a lot. And what I would do instead, though, I would wake up, set everybody to do the missions, run over to a couple shops, buy the upgrades for the research levels, and then I would go to sleep. Because you started amassing a lot of gold, sending all those people out, or a lot of gil, and you would basically have nothing to spend it on, so I would just toss it into the research levels to make my guys a little bit stronger. The game is extremely repetitive in that way, and you have ways to kind of alter that. I mean, you can tear down buildings once you build them, which is useful because you can get rid of your level 1 houses, and then because you have a 30 house cap in the game, but you can build 30 big houses or 30 small houses. So I basically would like tear down a few houses, come back the next day, throw up some of the bigger ones, and it would give me more money, better bang for your buck, basically.
So what were your tithes total at the end? Because I never did that. I never tore down houses.
So the end of the game, once you beat it, once you watch the final cutscene, you get what's called the Kingdom Scores, right? Mm-hmm. And this is where it shows you how awesome you were at the game.
Or how average you were.
Yeah. Or how very average.
Or below average.
Yeah. So let's just read it from the top down here. Okay. So my game clear score was a C.
Mine was also a C.
The difficulty was normal.
Yep.
I used 152 days.
I used 140 days.
Yeah, so Joe got it faster than me. I don't know how that's possible.
Because I wasn't doing other shit, obviously.
But the other shit doesn't actually make the game longer. The day is just the day.
There was also other things like, I don't know if you figured this out, but on the map it would tell you where the next like main quest was, and so I just wouldn't worry about side quests.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh. Until I got to a certain point where like they were repeating over and over again. I would have the second big quest, and I would use the second big quest and fill it. So I eventually did get everything, but because of the route I was going, I think that might have saved me a few days of time. Probably,
because I did the side ones when I got there, and you probably just annihilated the side quests because you picked them up when you were like 20 levels above them.
Yeah.
So how many dungeons did you clear?
I cleared 23.
Okay, I think that's all of them. That's what I got too. Yeah. The next column of score on this game is citizens, and I have an A in that column.
I have a citizens. D.
Oh man, D's get some degrees, right? Depending on if it's, as long as it's not a degree-specific class.
Yes,
it counts.
D's in electives get degrees.
That's right.
Yeah.
My tithes, I had 600 tithes at the end of the game.
Okay, you definitely bulldozed and got the bigger houses, because I had 300, and I thought that's all I could do.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so all of my houses were small houses. I had 30 of them. So that's obviously why I didn't get that good of a score there, unless it's also the morale bonuses, which I have. I said 3 before. I had 5, it looks like.
Oh, yeah, I had 73.
Wow, that's why you got bonuses. An
A. Yeah, that's why I got an A. And a lot of that is painstaking. As the day goes by itself, naturally, people will like interact and they'll buy bread and they'll be excited, and that morale thing, the morale meter will jump. But if you go to sleep and just skip to the next day, you don't get that morale jump. It doesn't like retroactively give it to you from the previous day's joy. You have to see it happen firsthand. And I would do that, and then I started running around and talking to everybody. And that was only because I wanted to upgrade my city to the ultimate level. Mm. But the thing is you only get you unlock different tokens. So like the morale, when the morale meter fills up and you get that little circle, the yellow circle, you can unlock more and more of those circles as you get certain buildings. So a bakery will give you one, and like the big Walmart marketplace that you can buy, the Emporium will give you another one.
Oh, sweet.
And I guess at the end, because it started costing 5 morale tokens at one time. And this is what makes it stupid. You can't just give her 4 of the 5 and then give her the 1 later. You have to give Chime all 5 at the same fucking time. And to unlock that 5th spot, I think you have to do a New Game Plus. And so I couldn't build the world of Padarak, like, or whatever the hell the next thing would be, like, because it goes from city, or town, city, empire, or town, city, kingdom, empire, like fucking, world, solar system of Padarak, fucking universe of Padarak at the end, or it's just all Padarak.
Naturally.
Yeah, I wasn't able to upgrade it, so that's when I started being like, well, fuck this, I'm done. I'm just going to start sleeping every single fucking day and just letting my guys slowly whack away at whatever I sent them on.
Maybe that's obviously why I got 5 morale bonuses, because I just was like, fuck it. sleep.
Yeah. There's nothing here.
Early on, by the way, like after the first 10 days of the game, I was like, it's sleepy time. And it was just at the midpoint of the game, it's like there's 4 chapters in this game. It's just when you get to certain quests, it'll change to a new chapter.
Yeah.
There's 4 chapters in this game, and I would say about midway through chapter 2 is when you're starting to feel because nothing's really happening. You're starting to feel the angst of nothing's happening in this game, and I just keep on waking up and going to sleep, waking up, going to sleep, and the little jingle in between was driving me nuts. Yeah. Man, so the repetitiveness was really driving me crazy. I wish that at least midway through the game, when I was going through that slump, that the game was throwing more things at me.
More buildings to build, more things to make it a game rather than Sleep Simulator, 2008.
Yeah, it's a narcoleptic simulator.
Yeah. It is narcoleptic head coach. The game. The game you didn't think you wanted so badly. But that is kind of what it turns into. And it's sad because there are some fun moments in this game. There are some enjoyable things. And overall, I don't think it's bad necessarily. It just does get so repetitive. And here's one of the things that makes it repetitive. Once you start doing your upgrades to your certain areas in town, you go to the item shop and you are unlocking high potion and X potion for your characters to go buy with the money you gave them for adventuring all day, every day, to make them stronger during their adventures. You run out of those items. So they're oh, we ran out of Firestone to build our fire spells. Why don't you go issue a behest to find some Firestones? And now, this is the thing. The Firestone is in an area that's a level 13 dungeon, right? And I'm sending people out there, and they're coming back getting their asses kicked. Mm-hmm. And I'm what the hell, man? There were days where I was nothing. No quest goes out except for collecting this fucking Firestone. And level 30 guys were coming back with their tails between their legs from this level 13 area. And they're sorry, we couldn't get the fire stuff. And I'm what the hell, man? And so you run out of resources and you have to issue more behests. And I was oh, that's kind of a cool idea. Until I fucking tried to do a few of them. And I was all right, I can't physically accomplish this because the game somehow is allowing these areas to be 5 times more sick than they were 10 minutes ago. And so, it gives you some stuff to do, but it also, backhands you when you try to do it. And it's,
I think those are where you got your extra days, because I just didn't even worry about resource stuff. Anything I couldn't, figure out research-wise outside of money, I let go. I didn't give
Can't buy it. It's not worth it?
Not worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it saved me a whole 12 days.
That's right. I was ashamed that I had more days than you two. I was fuck, man, why can't I beat this faster?
No, you got a better score than I did. The next section was adventurers. And I had 16 adventurers, and I would say you only need 12. I think I had a few too many.
I only had 12.
Yeah, that would have probably been better as far as levels, because you can only hire so many at a time, basically. You have to keep expanding this thing. So by the end of the game, I had guys that were in level 30 area. I had 5 of those guys. And then most of the guys were in the teens as far as levels were concerned. And just to be honest, by the time you get to the final boss stuff, there's not really a boss in the regular sense, but when you get to that, if your guys are in the teens, they're not going to do any damage to the boss whatsoever. But you're still going to be, if you're doing your same pattern over and over again, you're still going to be throwing them at them. So I figured 12 because you can have up to 3 customizable teams within your guild thing or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it's 3 teams of 4. And if you do it right, and if you have 1 of each class, in those things. So if you had 4 warriors, or excuse me, like 3 warriors, 3 white mages, 3 black mages, 3 thieves, and then you each put them into a group of 4, I think the game would just be a lot easier. And then those teams, because they were all together, they would level up with each other. So if I were to do this game again, which I won't, if I were to do this game again, I guess I kind of will, because I'll play My Life as a Dark Lord. I would just do 3 teams of 4, and then have those be evenly spaced out in terms of jobs, and then the final boss would probably be destroyed a lot quicker. And having less people doing the quests, they would also level up faster, I think. I don't know. But yeah, my number of adventures was 16. My average level was 16.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
I had 12, and my average level was 26.
Oh, see, there you go. Wow. See.
Yeah.
And the research levels, I got to 315.
Oh, okay. Mine's 725.
Oh! There you go.
Which is why I was like, why are my guys not beating it faster? Like, what the shit, man? I've researched the hell out of this game.
Yeah, I got a B. Did you get an A again, or what'd you get?
Oh, you got a B overall?
Yeah.
Serious? Oh, in Adventurers. Yeah. Oh, I got an A, yeah.
Okay. All right.
I got an A in Adventurers. So C in Game Clear, A in Citizens, A in Adventurers.
I got C in Game Clear, D in Citizens, and B in Adventurers. But somehow overall, that averages to a D.
Oh, this is a D overall?
Yeah, because B, C, and D equals D for some reason.
D. I'm pretty sure that's a C.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a C too, because I'm not a fucking idiot here.
Mine's a CAA, and I got a B, which I can see, I guess.
That would be an A minus.
Yeah, it's more of an A minus situation, but they round down here at Square Enix.
But on mine it doesn't even round down. It just fucked me. It just gave me a D.
It's like, no, we know you don't look like you suck, but you really suck. Like, it's all about the citizens, man. It's all about the citizens.
Yeah, the citizen tile, just like it took it all.
Yeah, it's like 60 and then 20%. 20% for the other two, so Citizens is almost all your grade.
So I guess in the past, when they're talking about my king in the future, and they're talking about him in the past, they'll be talking about, I'd give him a D. King was like a D. King. Yeah. I'm glad he started the city. You know, his layout was sucky. Everybody was unhappy.
The zoning was terrible in the city.
But I mean, he did save us from the Dark Lord.
Yeah. That's why it's not an F king. An F king is a king that killed everybody off and had a shitty zoning committee. I don't know. I had fun with the game, though. I mean, I thought it was semi-enjoyable. It was at least very, very easy and very fast.
Yes. Totally worth the 2-month wait.
Yeah, exactly. The day that it took Joe and the day and a half it took me.
I should have done it before I left. I thought it was a 20-hour game, so I was like, no. Man, I feel bad now. But super easy game. Final boss kind of threw me a curve, but once I figured out that I could change my team around, then I was able to do that. The final boss fight, by the way, it'll take place over multiple days.
Yeah, you basically just send your dudes in to hack away at the final boss day after day.
And you do have to watch the same cutscene every single day that it happens. They're like, let's send our heroes off. Luckily, there is a skip cutscene function.
There is, yeah. Do you remember the name of your main hero, the one that kept, dominating?
Lauren.
Oh, okay. Mine was Stella. I had Stella and I had Caesar, and Caesar was kind of a little shit. He was really good, and he was the highest level guy I had, but he was so high maintenance, man. I would come up to the board, and he'd have, a fucking frowny face. He's all sad, and I just can't adventure today, dude. I just can't do it. And I'm like, all right, well, just fucking go home, I send the guy home, and then the next day it's the same thing. Or, he'll come back this level 24 dude, he'll come back early from an adventure I send him on. And, like, this level 16 guy will come up and, like, he completed it, but my level 24 guy just didn't have it in him. It's fucking high maintenance, man. I'm telling you. But it kind of turns into that near the end of the game, though, where, like, you have one adventurer that's really fucking good and is, like, way better than everybody else. And that, for me, was old Stella. And she, I think at the final one, she beat the final boss, she had over, like, 100 intelligence. So, like, her black magic was, like, insane.
Oh, I kept on giving Laura, I kept on giving her just tons of strength. Because it was the first option, and I was going through this game as fast as I could.
Was she a warrior?
Yeah, she was.
Oh, okay, that's good. Yeah. At least you were paid enough attention to give her the right things.
Seriously kicking ass, though.
Yeah.
I needed her to be grouped up with some other high-level people, though, to take on that boss.
Yeah, like, because they would still come back dead as hell,
Yeah, they would. And they would have to take 2 days to heal. And eventually, like, I stopped. Obviously, it took me longer to beat the final boss than it did you. So this is all very interesting that it took me less days total. I would eventually just, like, let them heal at the hospital and do no bequests that day. And just go straight to sleep and then pop it back up so that they would then go and do that thing. But yeah, I agree with you. Like, it's a fun game. It's not like buggy or anything like that. It's really simple. It did get really repetitive in the middle of the game, but it starts throwing you more curveballs and more things to do. But I'd still like do everything as fast as possible. Like some of my days were like 10 seconds long. I just like, yeah. So 140 days was roughly 5 hours of gameplay. I'm mad that it doesn't on your Kingdom score tell you how long it took, but
yeah, I think that's kind of dumb. And that's what makes the how long to beat score so frustrating, is there's no knowing how long it actually took you to beat this thing.
Yeah.
It's just estimating.
Mm-hmm. So I would say about 5 hours for me.
Yeah. I probably took closer to 8 or 9.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I really wanted to get that Final Kingdom thing, but it just wouldn't pop. I couldn't get another building that I could make, and I think it's probably a New Game Plus thing.
Might be.
And I don't know if I'll ever play this again, so
no.
I'll never know.
But yeah, I enjoyed it. Actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought the concept was really cool. I just wish it weren't as simple as it is.
Yeah.
I wish they went a little bit more in depth on, like, what you can build and maybe micromanaging a little bit more, because managing other people to go out and have fun and adventure isn't very fun, but micromanaging their adventures maybe it would be a little more if they added some extra depth to the game. And certainly I think a few more classes would have been nice. So the DLC that they tacked on would have probably made it a little bit more fun, just a touch of more variety. But even then, like, half of this game, half of my days, if not 2/3 of my days, were me waking up, sending everybody out, and going right to sleep, And I was like, I'll spend the gold later. Like, it doesn't matter. I don't need to spend it now. I just want this game to be done. Like, I just started it today, and I already kind of want to be done.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, kind of a cool concept. All right, let's go
up.
now. Yeah,
let's get this out of here.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I don't know, if you have it, then I'd give it a run through, and you can take either of our two approaches to it. And both of us ended up doing the skip day pretty quickly, because there's just not much going on. There's very little story here and there. You would accept a certain story quest, and you get a little cut scene where they're like, "Oh, Dark Lord, he's coming. Dark Lord's coming. We better be ready." And then, like, boom, and then he gets back to sleeping every single day, all day. And then you get another cut scene. He's like, "No, he's really coming this time. Dark Lord's coming. Your dad's captured. Now you better go right back to sleep now." Send your buddies out to do all your work for you and get some rest.
That's right.
And it sucks because there are moments in the game where the king is like, "I want to go out and adventure," and his buddies and the advisors are like, "No, you can't. That's not for you." And I was like, come on, that's like the fun stuff. They're out there having fun. I'm in here just sleeping. Like, haven't aged a day in these 140 days because I've slept almost every moment of it. And if anything, I look younger than I did before we started this thing. Like, I'm so well rested. Yeah, you look like you just don't ever need to sleep again. It's I don't know. I don't know how it compares to other Wiiware titles though either, because I never played any Wiiware games. It's almost like slightly more than a mobile game. Well, definitely more than a mobile game at the time.
Yeah, at the time, you're right. Totally.
Now it's like this could be on a phone and it would look way better on a phone.
This was 2009, so it would have been 3 years after the iPhone, and most people didn't have an iPhone by then. So, or a smartphone by then. So, yeah. Phone games on a flip phone. This was totally more complicated than that.
Yeah.
So I would... let's talk about design and music real quick, because that's our other two categories. Not going to have much to say, though, just because the game is so short. And the game... Yeah. This is just in their run of Wii titles for the Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicle series, which just look like a slightly better version of Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles for the GameCube anyway. It's still got the same kind of really colorful color palette thing, and it has the same kind of chibi-esque anime-style characters that are all short and cute.
Big heads. You know the deal.
This one has repeated character designs all over the place, just because, until they become the warriors that they're meant to be or whatever. And then each of the houses look the same. All the buildings kind of look the same when they're built. So there's not that much variety there, but the game, in gameplay, story, and in design, is just really simple, but functional, I would say.
Yeah, it all works. Like Joe said, I mean, you do run into repeat characters, repeat citizenry around you, but, I mean, if you're just sleeping the day away, you don't really notice much of that.
No.
So, it's there, but you don't have to see it, because you just go back to bed, you don't have to see this world of odd similarities between multiple people. Mm-hmm. Because your ass is asleep.
That's right.
It does look like a slightly better looking Crystal Chronicles, though, but there's less going on too, so it's hard to even say that.
I don't think it looks as good as Ring of Fates.
No, it doesn't have the fun like item stack glitch either. Like there's no fun glitch in this game that you can use to climb towers. You can't break the game by stacking gold coins on top of each other like you could in that. So fuck this game.
Yeah.
But it's. I don't think it looks as good as Ring of Fates either necessarily. But it's like a totally different game too. Like you're not out adventuring. It's just like it's town building. It's really fucking weird. It's so weird as for a Final Fantasy game.
Mm-hmm. Okay, music was, at a certain point, I got really fucking mad at like the little jingle that it played when you slept and when you started the new game, the new day. That one was starting to drive me nuts. But other than that, it was just like regular Crystal Chronicles music, only with no variety because you're stuck in the same town. And then a different song played during the boss fight, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And during the cutscenes, and it was fine. It was the same kind of fluty-ness that all the Crystal Chronicle games have had, and it's not repetitive and annoying like the first game. It's a little bit more on the Ring of Fates level as far as the soundtrack is concerned, in my opinion. So, I thought the soundtrack was fine. What'd you think?
It's very simple and very limited. But it didn't grate on me quite in the same way as the first game in the series did with the soundtrack. Certainly, there's a lot less to be had. And I think the good songs and the really fun songs from the first game are certainly better than the songs in this game. But this one also doesn't piss you off, which is good because everything else does start to get extremely repetitive. So if the music got that way, I don't know. I don't know how much of this I could have handled in one go.
Right. You're totally right. Yeah, and I had the headphones on, man. So I was like in there with the game. I didn't even listen to a podcast at the same time, which is what I do half the time when I'm playing these games. So yeah, it wasn't too bad. Say it's design, music, and then our overall. What did you think of this game overall, Schweiss?
I think it's a fun game. I think it's worth your time if you already have it. Obviously, it's not really something you can get a hold of now quite the same way. I don't know what their plans are, and I'm not sure if it's available on maybe the Wii U store, but as far as like playing it in its original form on the Wii, if you don't have it, you can't really do it. So it's hard to say like go pick it up. It's worth your $5 because you can't.
Right.
As far as I know, it's one that if you already have it, I think it's worth your time. It's an interesting take on Final Fantasy. It's an interesting take on adventuring, and it has a really fun concept, but the execution of it might not be as good as it could have been, which is sort of disappointing, especially considering the gameplay was the most fun part about this game, but it was also the thing that you could tell could have been way awesome if they would have just tried a little harder, So I think overall it's a pretty good game for what it is. I just wish they would have put more in there, and I know they could have.
Right.
It's not like I'm asking for, high def graphics on the Wii or anything, or, gameplay in the game. I'm asking for like more of what it already has, just like a higher variety, because the game takes on average, from what we can tell, about 150 days to complete. And if you run out of stuff to build by day 50, like that's a lot of dead air in between you finishing the game and running and finishing the last building you can make, So I just kind of wish they would have put a little bit more effort into that, to just make the time between seem a little less blank.
Yeah, I wish it was less repetitive towards the middle section, certainly, so more things to do. Totally agree with you on that. I did enjoy the game more than I thought I would when I was in the middle of the game. By the end of the game, like, oh, you can do some other things, and you can expand this experience a little bit better. And for a game that's like a passing the time sort of a thing, it's not too bad. I think they should probably re-release this as a phone game. And maybe make $3 off of it. Square Enix should, or like release a Switch package that has like all the Crystal Chronicle games in it.
Oh, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that would make Square a few bucks. But yeah, I enjoyed it. We'll get to our rankings in a second, but overall, yeah, it was just kind of a fun little afternoon.
One afternoon of fun.
Yeah. We do have some questions, so let's get into that.
Let's do it.
Questions for us. We would like to hear from you. To a moment. Or contact us on Twitter. Get on and ask your questions. We'll answer them within a week. This is the question segment. Ask and you will receive.
First question here from Rude Rose. We got no reviews, by the way, from our listeners.
We ain't got no reviews.
No reviews at all. I think 2 of our listeners might have played this game. Neither of them reviewed it.
Yeah, come on, guys. Come on.
And to be fair, I didn't know this game existed until we did this podcast. So I think that's a thing for most of our listeners, probably.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so Rude Rose, first question. If there was one aspect of the game you could change, what would it be?
Yeah, probably just the lack of depth. I would have added more things to do, more things to play around with while you're speeding through the game, just to make that middle section not so bogged down with just pure boringness. Because you seriously run out of stuff to build for the most part by like day 40 of the game, and like by then you still have 100 days to go if you're Joe and 110 days to go if you're me. It's like, shit, man, that's a lot of the game left with nothing to really build, nothing to play around with. So I would have added just a little bit more variety, maybe a few more job classes, which I know the DLC stuff had, but come on, just fucking put it in the game.
I would have added more of the SimCity elements to it. So just a little bit more customization, maybe a little bit more complex. Like you need to get water to a certain area or something, like build some aqueducts and like connect them to the house.
Yeah. You could do a natural disaster. You can send Godzilla down and destroy like the village.
I think that would be cool, but like something like that. Just like add like two or three more elements to the city building.
Yeah, like provide food for the people, like, oh yeah, you've got a bakery, but you need grain. Like, what are you going to do about grain?
Yeah.
That could have helped a lot, I think. It would have made it like, oh, that's kind of a cool thing, instead of like, oh, that's a cool thing, and then let's do that same thing for, 6 hours. That's fair. Second question here is, does this game feel like a Final Fantasy game, or does it simply bear the name?
If we were playing the main series games and then we're throwing this curveball, no.
Yeah, if this was Final Fantasy like 12, I mean, I would shit my pants.
No, I would definitely say no on that. But having played Crystal Chronicles, which felt like a kind of odd spin-off of like FF9.
Yeah.
And then this being from Crystal Chronicles, that route, in the order that we've played the games, yeah, it does feel like a Final Fantasy game. There's some, because it feels like a Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles game, at least. I guess there's no Final Fantasy creatures in it. Huh.
Yeah. I mean, I guess there sort of are, if you look at the quest logs and like what they're fighting, but you don't see them. I agree with that completely. I don't think it necessarily feels like a main series game, but it does feel like something that would come out of the Crystal Chronicles sub-series of Final Fantasy games, which is kind of a weird spin-off of the main series to begin with, so it's easier for something to fit into that. And it does have the same... They all just have, like, the same kind of feel to them, I mean, oddly, the one that doesn't have any combat even still feels like the combat-heavy first one and the stack-item-heavy second game in the series. But yeah, so I think it does. I think you can tell that it doesn't have to be a Final Fantasy.
No.
But I feel like it would have even less to offer if it wasn't. So it's probably a good move that they made an FF game out of it.
And they probably would have made like 1/8 the amount of money if they didn't put Final Fantasy in the title.
Probably.
Yeah. Does the game live up to its title? Do you feel you live the life of a king?
I don't know about that. I mean, thing is if this is the life of a king, like I said before, I don't
Where
ever want to be.
concubines?
Yeah, like where's all the fun stuff? Like it's my life as an adventure manager.
Yeah. What about my life as the giver out of justice?
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. No headsman, no awesome stuff. Like
no.
So. Not any king that I've ever heard of, I'd say. I think I'd list it as that.
Yeah. You need that in order to really have the life of a king. So I would agree. I don't think I live the life of a king. I live the life of adventure manager with the odd title of king. Would you ever want to play this game again if you had free time? If I was an immortal, yeah, I would. If I had that much free time.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we all have to die someday, in which case I got other games to play.
Yeah. I don't know. I might. I might play it at some point. If I ever wanted to run through all of the Final Fantasy games again, I would play it. I don't think I would play it just out of, oh man, I'm really itching to play that Life as a King, I feel like the next one with fucking the tower defense game might be something that you would more likely return to, as opposed to a really lazy SimCity Final Fantasy Adventure Manager game.
None of the Crystal Chronicles so far have been games I want to revisit. They're just not to the same level as the other Final Fantasy games. They're just they're too childlike to enjoy, but not fun enough to make me go crazy over it. Especially this one, or especially the first Crystal Chronicle games, actually. So yeah, I wouldn't replay it. I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does have its own level of addiction. I was like, oh man, this is kind of exciting, and then it got really boring.
Yeah.
It just became too much. So
yeah, you need to add more to you need to add a little bit more heroin every time, and it just gave you the same amount over and over.
Exactly.
Random Dude has 4 more questions, so we'll do those and then we'll wrap up. Random Dude asks, are you becoming more or less attached to the Crystal Chronicles verse as you go on?
Well, I mean, I feel like more just because of how much I disliked the first game.
Yeah.
So, it was off to a real rough start, and I was like, this is supposed to be primo Crystal Chronicles, and I am so mad at it right now. So I would say it's improving in a way. But also in another big way, it's kind of stagnating, because it's not necessarily that they're getting oh man, that one was surprisingly awesome. It's that one was just fine. It had fun stuff, and then the game was over.
Well, this one's the odd one. So Ring of Fates is a much improved version of the original game, gameplay-wise. Much improved. Ridiculously improved. So I would say Ring of Fates, the excitement level on the gameplay end is a lot higher. This game is really different. But it's still kind of in that same universe, and nothing story-wise is really pulling me in, so that's not really making me attached, as it were, as to
I kind of like the world, and I like how they brought back the accomplishments we did in the first game. They're like, oh, the miasma's gone. Let's go revisit this world. That's kind of a cool idea to explore, but they don't really explore it at all, because the miasma, I mean, it was a haven for monsters and stuff, So this world, this is going to be a completely different world from what they had seen before the miasma came. And they don't explore that for a second. All they do is they're like, all right, miasma's gone. Let's go find this plot of land and start building. If we build it, they will come, And
right.
And there's a lot of cool stuff they could play around with the story, but so far they really haven't. Because, I mean, we had the first game, which was story for about 5 minutes. We had the second game, which tried to do a story, but it was a prequel. So it had nothing to do with the first game. And then we had the first true sequel, and it has 10 seconds of story, which isn't really even advancing the world at all. It's just something else that was going on.
These games are kind of cash grabby. So this one was Ring of Fates was made in 2008, right? And then this one and Echoes of Time and My Life as a Dark Lord all released in 2009.
Oh no, this one's 08.
Oh, this one's 08.
The next 3 come out in 09.
Yeah.
So that's when you really can see the cash grabby nature of that.
Oh, it's obvious. And it's obvious in the game too, just because it's not really that expounded upon, gameplay wise. There's not that much else to do in the game than what we did. And the games are so short, and the games aren't really that impressive graphics-wise. They're fine, utilitarian, but they're not. It doesn't feel like they're trying, honestly.
Yeah,
obviously,
and it's
the only big deal about the series is that it was them going back to Nintendo. for a little bit.
And it's like, here, have our leavings, Nintendo. Like, sure, we'll put a game out on there, but it's like the shit that we would never come to Sony with.
Yeah. I will say, having played a couple hours of Echoes of Time, it is exactly the same game as Ring of Fates. Just the story's different, the areas are different, but it plays exactly the same.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I got some more stuff to say about that next week. So yeah, and it looks like, My Life as Dark Lord will be the same as this game. So in that way, it's just going to keep repeating at least for 2 more games. I did look at some screenshots for Crystal Bearers, and it looks like it comes from a different series.
Yeah. It does.
So we'll see. It's the game that made the series die, but we'll see how Crystal Bearers is. So yeah, I'm not getting more attached. He also asked, do you feel this game added to the Crystal Chronicles series or took away from it? I say it added just because it's different.
Yeah.
For now, we'll see how the other games go. Would you recommend this game to someone who liked the original Crystal Chronicle games?
That's kind of tough to say just because this one's so different.
Sure, if you like simple, fun games in this universe, I guess. Yeah, I would recommend it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Do you feel like there are any aspects to this game that could be continued in future titles going forward? Ooh.
No, I think the sequel certainly had one that brought some stuff to future titles. I mean, because we have a tower defense game that we had listeners review for us, the Crystal Defenders game. Mm-hmm. So I mean that planted the idea of, hey, we could make this game that is super easy to make with our own little trademarked icons. So in a way, yeah, its sequel sort of lended to future titles, but I don't think there's really enough here to do a future title other than maybe a re-release on a phone.
Yeah.
Of this game. Like it's so different from any other Final Fantasy game that I don't think that it would lend to itself to any other title, because I don't think they would do this again. Which is honestly part of why it's refreshing to play, because it's nice to have something that kind of changes up what you've been used to, and the Final Fantasy games, they're all there's a lot of fun to be had in them, but most of them are the turn-based RPG. So in that way, it's kind of cool, and I guess maybe it lent itself to Final Fantasy branching out and trying different things, like with Dirge of Cerberus or with the fucking MOBA game, Final Fantasy XII Revenant Wings. So in a way, it could have led to some of that, but I don't know about going forward now in 2018.
Yeah, I like the management thing. If it were like a sub aspect of a different Final Fantasy game.
Yeah, something else that you could do as a side thing.
Like if FF15 decided to throw another DLC in where you sublet, someone's quests or whatever. That might be kind of interesting. Well, not in 15's world, but maybe in another Final Fantasy game with more characters. But I don't know. Besides that, I wouldn't want another game that was this exact same thing, which we're totally going to have to do. But
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we already kind of talked overall. Kind of lukewarm on this game, but like that it went in a new direction. Thought it was mostly fun, although very repetitive.
Oh, yeah.
But our rankings, Schweiss, did we both put Ring of Fates above the original Crystal Chronicles?
Oh, certainly, yeah.
Okay.
Easily.
All right, so I'm going to give you my ranking here. It's going to be Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles Ring of Fates, still going to be the king for now. Then Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles My Life as a King, a second place. And then Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, the original one, as the worst game so far. I do think our overall view of Crystal Chronicles was positive, but there were a lot of negative aspects and a lot of problems with the game. That make it so that Ring of Fates, I know the tone might be a little different. That might throw some people off. Like the story is more of a story and less of and then the adventurers went on a thing. Less of like a storybook story, but more of like a classic Final Fantasy story, just like cheaper and shorter. But other than that, I would say that original Crystal Chronicle game, it's not aging well against these other games, and I think almost every other aspect of these other ones are just better. And My Life as a King is just a better game overall. Like, it's more tight. It doesn't have as many problems. So, yeah, I would place this game as second place in my Crystal Chronicle ranking. What about you?
All right. This one's kind of tough because OG Crystal Chronicles was fun to play because we were playing it together.
Right.
But, I mean, how much of that is it was fun to play because we were hanging out, and how much of it was fun to play because it was the actual game being fun. And fuck, man, it's tough because I obviously I'm going to put Ring of Fates as number one still. And I think right behind that, I think I'm going to put My Life as a King above the original Crystal Chronicles. Just barely, though. It's a pretty close thing. This game doesn't really have a whole lot that it's offering, but it's consistent with what it is. And Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, I found very frustrating near the end because it didn't explain a lot of things about like the leveling up items that you can grab and like what that meant when you grabbed one from each level, and it made for a lot of frustrating experiences of us redoing things.
Yeah.
Whereas this game, if you take a little longer, it doesn't really matter. You know, it might affect your overall score, but you're not like screwed and incapable of beating the game because you didn't do a certain thing. And it's conceptually, this one was a pretty cool idea. I just feel like they poorly executed it. But even with that, I do think I like My Life as a King just a little bit more than the original Crystal Chronicles, which I will be buying again.
Are you
for the
serious?
PlayStation 4. Yeah, dude.
Why?
You know what? You should buy it too, because the other day you were like, "Man, we need to get a good multiplayer game."
No,
we could just get the PS4 port of Crystal Chronicles and play it 4-player online with like Craig and Cameron or some shit. That's
a horrible idea.
I kind of don't want to do that, but
no.
I'll buy it again anyways, but only because it's gonna have trophies, and I can't resist. I just can't resist.
Oh God!
But yeah, it's it's a close thing. They're both not necessarily great, but yeah, and it's an interesting series. It's a weird sub-series. It's strange. It's a strange thing to give Nintendo, like that they just didn't put on any other console. Like I don't know, it's like a way to make amends, but not really, because nobody's going to buy these games, sort of a thing. So it's the whole thing surrounding Crystal Chronicles is odd to me, personally. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, it was all right.
Yeah, time to move on, though, right?
so far, this whole series has been, it's all right. Echoes of Time, I'm going to tell you, is not going to rank above Ring of Fates.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think so. I think one of us needs to play the DS version, for sure. Because the Wii screen and controls have shown me that it was definitely a DS game that they then figured out that they could port to the Wii very lazily. So I would you might have a better experience playing the DS version. I don't have a choice, but you do if you choose to. I plan on beating Echoes of Time this week, doing an off-subject episode next week, like not a review episode next week, just because I don't know I got some weird employment stuff going on, so I got to take care of that, and I'm not sure how things are going to be, so I don't want to promise a review next week, but I have already put up, if you guys want to, there's already questions, or there's already places in the forum for your Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicle Echoes of Time reviews and your questions as well. And I want to remind you all once again, I would love to hear your Final Fantasy stories, and you can take that however you will, like however you got into the series, or if there was something like crazy that happened when you were playing the games or whatever. If you want to email those stories to fffanatics123@gmail.com, I'd be really interested in hearing that. But yeah, Schweiss, we're back on track.
Yeah.
I know I got access to the next 4 games in the series, so I don't even have to go get my stuff from my parents' house. So we should be able to handle this just fine.
Yeah, it's time. This is going to be... So we had the back-to-school special, right, in August of 2014.
Yeah.
This is going to be the October... Fuck, I had something. I built something for it. The October Final Fantasy. How about that? We're going to rock these Final Fantasies this October. Because I think we could do... It's probably a safe bet that we can do My Life as a Dark Lord in a week as well.
Yeah.
And so part of me kind of wants to have everything but Crystal Bearers done by the end of this freaking month. And I know that's a lot, but it's really not, because we know the truth now. we know the truth of how long to beat's corruption.
Yeah.
As of late, so I think it's time. I think it's time to start catching back up on the Final Fantasy games, and this is a great time to do it because we've got a couple shorter titles. I'm gonna try to find a DS copy of this one so I can play it at work and stuff. And we've been kind of neglecting the reviews, and it feels good to be back on top and back to reviewing these games, because that's the whole point of the show, is us trying to play all these games, and now it feels like we're both in a pretty good spot to start knocking some of these little ones down.
Yep. Just spot in life. That's the only problem that was going on. It's not like we were getting lazy on the game. Well, we kind of were. I didn't realize I should have just been able to beat this before I left. But yeah.
And I, of course, fall into the, well, Joe's not going to play it, so I'm not going to play it thing.
Yeah.
Even though if I would have played it, I could have been like, hey, dude, this is a really small game. We should just do this.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, I think it's time.
So real quick, thank you guys for being patient with us as we've gone through this journey. There will be an updated game list on the site, by the way. So if you want to check out what games we have left to play in our run of this podcast, you can go check that out and join us there. Really, I want your Final Fantasy stories. So once again, you can tweet me at Joseph DeGolier.
You can tweet me at UFF Podcast.
Our website is ultimafinalfantasy.com, which is where you can find the forums and give us your Echoes of Time reviews and your Echoes of Time questions. Let's knock these babies out. Let's get out of here, Schweiss.
All right, sounds good. Until next time, guys, as always, enjoy the double-screened Wii game grind.